But anyway, welcome to the Infinite Creative Podcast. My name is Sean. This is Fitz. We are creative geniuses that talk about podcast news, AI, a lot. You know, I should really look at my keyword. Let's look at the keywords mug really quickly here. We talk about culture.
Straight into the ads, my man.
We talk about 3D printing. We talk about accessibility. We talk about information, creating value, user experience. But you know what? We also talk about coffee. We talk about coffee sometimes. Not really like the ins and outs, but we talk about coffee.
I think you should actually hold up the coffee. Oh, no, it's in shot.
Oh, it's in shot. It's in shot. So I want to introduce our newest co-member or co-host, Mr. Coffee Pot.
Yeah, Mr. Coffee Pot. I think his nickname is Potty, Potty.
We're working on names. So if you have a name for him, put it down in the comments below. We're still brainstorming these things. But for everyone, welcome to the Infinite Creative Podcast. Here we're going to talk about some cool things today. This morning, Supreme Court was talking about student loans. We're talking about some Notion AI stuff. We're going to talk about, what's kind of the mental health and how does that relate to creativity and how can you cope with mental health using creativity and kind of create a pyramid that he's going to kind of talk and build you through. Yeah. And other than that, welcome everybody. Yeah. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. I'm not gonna lie. Life is very good to me in a weird way, and it's very interesting. Some people right now would be like saying it's the toughest time to be around in the US or just in general in the world because there's a lot of things going like south. And I think we should jump right into like being creative and making a living with creativity and actually using creativity to just sustain yourself and release pressure. So there's like many aspects to creativity where people are like, oh yeah, I like drawing, for example. And they draw, they release their stress. And then there's people who are like, I need to draw so I can make money and make a living. Yeah. And that's like two different pairs of shoes. And you as an artist, how you deal with stress and creativity?
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, I think it's just about doing things in a way that's fun, creating a fun environment that doesn't always work out with deadlines and things like that. So in offices, it's a lot harder. I think for people that work in the office, I think if you go into an agency or you go somewhere where you have to do creativity all day, it can be hard to like leave work and want to do more creativity. So, but I think it's just doing something that is completely separate, right? So if you're like a web designer, then doing pottery. If you're like a writer for your job, then maybe you're doing like dance or something creative. I think doing something that's like kind of juxtaposing and completely out of left field actually can be really therapeutic, I feel like. Yeah. Jumping into something you're not good at, for example, can actually be something that really does a lot of good.
Stress and helps you and gets you again like motivated because like it's really tough right now because like most people are like stressed to the teeth. They're like, okay, recession is hitting, the COVID thing, the war thing, everything is basically going south, you know, and they kind of just focus on the wrong thing because like my mentality with the whole thing right now is like you got to double down and figure out who's doing well now and focus on that because like there's always somebody who makes a living off somebody else's downfall. What is kind of messed up, but it's like, oh, recession is hitting, everybody's sitting at home and everybody's just watching TV, like now Netflix and Amazon and all those sites who have like streaming options make a killing because they're providing content and people spend more time on the computer consuming more and there's like so many ways where you can benefit from it and you can be victim or cannot be victim, but it's really hard to stay actually like motivated in that environment because like everybody's stressed out and you're like, I should be creative, I should be drawing now because it's the new hip thing or whatever it is, and you're just like in your mental space like, I need to make a living, I need to do this and I need to do that, and in the end you do nothing because you're paralyzed.
The paralyzation, right? Yeah, I mean, I think when I jumped off out of my job and started my freelance and came down here to Florida, it was a very scary time. I mean, I remember being here and being like, what how can I make creativity fun when I need it to make me money immediately, and that can be really scary, right? I think I've gotten better at this over the years, but it's you really do have to push the fun projects even in the middle of the hellish times. It sounds really weird where people are like, wait, so I should do something fun while I'm behind on a project? Should I do something fun while a client's mad at me? Like that makes no sense. But But
in actuality, though, it makes a lot of sense because the clients will see you doing stuff and they will admire it. They will not admire you for struggling for survival. It's just like, oh, somebody's not doing well. I kind of don't want to hang out with them because it's kind of rough. You know, it's like if people have tough times, people try to separate them from that because they don't want to get dragged down. What is like counterintuitive because theoretically speaking, we're a society, we should help each other, you know, and be like, oh, he's not doing well, let's give him a helping hand, you know. And no, everybody likes to win-win and the up circle versus the down circle.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one thing in mental health that like sticks out to me is protest behaviors. So protest behaviors is like things that you do in protest to someone doing something, and something you commonly do. So a lot of the time it adds fuel to the fire, right? So you feel like someone at work isn't paying attention to you. So you're like, well, then I'm going to just act in the next meeting like I'm not paying attention. That's a protest behavior. Gotcha. So you actually make the situation worse. So I almost think like, why not make creativity your protest behavior, right? If something goes wrong, I like that. Why not make your protest behavior into making something like, okay, well, that all went wrong. The client hated it. I even got fired or something terrible just happened. Yeah. Why don't you go do something creative and protest? You know, go paint something. Go do something. Go make a Banksy. But you know, even dancing and things. You know, I think we talk a lot about like, you know, traditional art, graphic art, and things like that. But yeah, I mean, dancing and acting. You know, go do poetry somewhere. You know, go do photography. You know, I think it's funny. It's like you don't think of these things when you're like in the heat of the moment, when you're angry, when you're sad. You can't
really. So that is like the other thing. Like people feel guilty for not doing those things, and they want to do them, and they know they should do them. But when you have to pay rent and things are going south, it's really hard to be like, I think I should be doing the so-called fun project, and so I get like refueled, or maybe go to a networking thing, or go in the park, going for a walk, and then meet a person. You never know what happens, you know. That's like one of the things. Like when I have a client shoot and I go downtown, have my camera, people are like, oh, so you do photo video, and then oh, new gig opportunity, you know. But if you're like at home and you model your head and you're just like, what should I do, you know, and you're just like, I don't know what to do, nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's true. I think, you know, we live in a time where we all feel like we can Google our way out of problems. And I think, you know, the first thing that happens when people lose their job or something happens, I think they go to Google. They go to like, save me, Google. What should I do? You know, get me out of this. Where like, you know, people are getting more and more scared, I feel like, of the unknown. And I think that can be very dangerous, that the unknown can be a really brilliant, beautiful thing. Even I find myself being too scared of the unknown sometimes, where you have to kind of jump full in. Like when I moved to Florida, yet again, to go back to that, it was like, there was nothing really safe about that. And it made no sense to anyone that I told it to. They were like, so you're going to go move into like a half blown down house in Florida. You're going to quit your job. You're going to quit all this stuff and go down there. Like, and you're well known in this town, but you're not known at all in that town. So you're going to just,
from the networking aspect alone, it's like suicidal, you know, like, oh, I jump in a new environment and I'm going to make myself a name. And now I'm like getting all the work just because I showed up. And all the established web designers, videographers, or designers of any type, or creatives, you know, they're like, they working the corner already. They'll be known, you know, and everybody's just like, I know 5 guys. But sometimes people want the fresh wind, you know. And if you get that energy, everybody's paying attention to the new guy. Everybody's looking, you know. So it's a good thing, you know.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, and what I, you know, and I think I've talked about this in past episodes, is, you know, what I really leaned on too is that like, hey, I'm the new guy. I'm teachable. It's not like I'm coming here to upset anyone. It's like, I just want to mop someone's floor. I just want to like, you know, I just want to be here. And I think that read really quickly, where people, even today, you know, I'll meet people here in this town, and you know, I try to put that as like, I'm not here to, I'm gonna take this place by storm. It's like, I just come in here like, hey, how can I help you guys? I'm like, you know, I'll just do whatever I can to help.
Yeah, I think it's like an interesting strategy. I know a lot of very driven people, like Kenobi Media, for example. This guy is like driven through the walls. Like, I'm just like, damn, I'm impressed how driven he is, you know? And then there's like people where they're less driven, and it's really depending on what boat you sit and how hard you how do you call it, rudder?
Like a rowboat.
Yeah, if you're in a rowboat, it's really depending how hard you do it. but it also depends on what water you are. Is the currency going with you or against you? Because like sometimes you can put all that labor in and you're going hard, and you don't get results. And it's like, yeah, if I would have been like going into a different direction, being on a different river in a different boat, the efforts would have paid way, way, way more, And you never know where you sit, but you can kind of measure it after like a year or 2 or 3.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely think that like you can. Yeah, and I feel like I've been in the wrong river a lot of my life, to be honest with you. I think I'm one of those people that I've been caught working really hard on things and using that as a way to get over something. So my protest behavior a lot of the time, where I just said do something creative, I would almost do something creative. I would just do more work, or I would work harder on the thing. That would be my protest behavior. So like, so for the longest time at the beginning of my career, like, and I'm talking like right when I got out of college, things for that first 2 years or so, if something went wrong, if a client was like, I hate this design, I would almost abuse myself with how I would be like, okay, well then I'm going to stay up all night giving you a new round. I don't care. I got to punish myself for this not going right. I think there's a lot of that goes on too, that like the creatives kind of feel this like, well, you messed that up. Now I got to punish myself. I got to work harder now. And
I also think like in regards to mental health, like taking like feedback too harsh, or like being like really harsh on yourself is like really bad. So my self-protective behavior, because I don't do that, I'm like, okay, I just invalidate the opinion of like whoever is giving me the opinion, because like I know if I value that opinion too much and it actually hurts me, it has no benefit for me, because like my own survival, my own mental health is more important than like the opinion of somebody, And there's people who are very self-conscious. They're like, oh, this is not, I don't know how they will perceive me. Like 50% of whoever will perceive you will hate you no matter what. It does not matter if you do good work, bad work. It's just like we all just have mental space where I think 100 people, there was like a study, how big can your group be? And it's only 100 people. You maybe have like 5 to 10 close friends, but the rest you have to fill and you have to cycle through the rest. And that's why if you start in a new job, they maybe don't like you, they don't want to like you, and they don't have the mental capacity to take on a new person, What is that's like, it has nothing to do with you. And you should not get like, take their opinion too much,
Yeah, it's great advice. I mean, I think I see it all the time. Yeah, when I get embedded with a new company, there's always this weird trepidation, right? Because there is creatives out there that come in and they want to burn everything down, and and that's something that I think a lot of creatives have to learn, is that it's easy to burn everything down. It's easy to come in and say, yeah, the last guy sucks, but it's a lot harder to come in, be like, okay, how about I meet you where you are? How do I keep some of your stuff? How do I improve some of this stuff? And I think people get scared of that. And I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, I've walked into situations after another creative who did come in, destroyed the SEO without knowing it, are totally disconnected all the email campaigns so it didn't work. And, and they did it because they wanted to destroy the system that was already in place, and they didn't put something in that was better. And so there is that. It's not always you. And sadly, like the last person, you're always going to have to kind of live that down a bit, the last creative.
I mean, like on that note, I mean, like I said, like you cannot take it too personal, because it's a rough environment right now. And let's say you start a new job, you always be like at a disadvantage and at advantage, because we said it. You're the new guy in town. Man, this is an amazing feeling. Everybody's paying close attention. Some of the people, they're just like fed up. They're just like, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to deal with it. And they're just like, just fire him. I'm good without him, And it's like, even though you would provide good change, So that's like a thing. Being the new guy is a blessing and a curse at the same time.
It is.
And you need to take advantage of that in a way, and don't take it like too seriously, because like you have no control about what the person is going through right now.
Yeah. And I've probably said this before in the podcast, because I've been in companies where, I was the last one hired, first one fired, type of thing. And I've had it happen before where, you see it. You can see the writing on the walls. I've been there where you're like, oh, I'm going soon. Things are getting awkward. And what I would suggest to people is fail with grace, have grace in all of it,
Yeah.
Don't lose your cool. I mean, there's people inside and outside the creative industry that I've known that they get really ugly once the end's coming too. And I would suggest don't that yet again
that
that's
just accelerates.
That's the protest behavior that I'm talking about of you can't accelerate it. You can't be like, well, I'm going to start doing these things, or I'm going to steal these clients, or I'm going to do this stuff. But no, I mean, I every job that I've ended, I can definitely say that I ended it being like, I'm going to try to leave this chair, this computer, and have everything that needs to be done, everything organized. I'm not going to burn down the place. I'm going to just leave with grace. And I think there's something to that.
There's a lot to that. Because on the one side, everybody's behavior is different. And there's people, for example, oh my God, they work 25 years or 10 years, let's say. Work at the place, give it that all, and they think like, if I have a good attitude, if I work my butt off, if I work the overtime, magically the new ownership will just appreciate me, or change is not gonna happen, and then they're fired, just like that. And everything they did doesn't mean or matter at all, because like the new guy maybe switches up everything, and he maybe has a valid reason, and sometimes it's just like you gotta adapt to change, and you have to be open to it, and you cannot take it like with a like being like, oh, they fired me after 10 years. How dare they? And, being like,
Yeah, well, I think it's also just trust the system, trust the universe. It may not make sense in the moment as you're carrying the cardboard box out to the car. It may not make sense when you get the email from the client that says, we're going with somebody else. Can you send everything over to this new guy? In those moments, you're going to be mad. You're going to feel hurt. You're going to feel like you've lost the world. But trust the universe. Maybe this is good. You don't know it. You don't know what happens in a month. Maybe this frees you up for some awesome thing you would have never done.
That is like the thing. Like, people don't understand. Like, let's say you're getting fired. You have now more than 40 hours where you theoretically could relax, take a step back, and like, let's see, what can I do? I know this worked in my free time. I made some money, like, let's say on the side. Now I can focus like my full-time attention to something that gives me theoretically more, same, or less money, but it maybe will be still enough to make it worth it, because like I have now more time. But you need to have that mental capacity of like, okay, I know this is stressful, I know it's not guaranteed, but I could make that happen if I reach, like, let's say I reach out to 10 clients or 20 clients or 50 clients, and now I have 40 hours a week, and the first 40 hours does not even matter. The next week I maybe can close them, and then it matters and the money is coming in.
Honestly though, I've heard of so many people that use that first day that they're like, embrace the chaos, if you will. Like, all right, well, this just broke my schedule. Here I am on a Tuesday. I just got fired. I have the whole day, instead of, and I would say, and for people that feel like I would go rest, I would go meditate, I'd go for a walk. I think that's great. But I would say hustle. I've had so many people that in that first day got another job, and that first day met the next thing. It's surprising, but like it sometimes can just happen immediately. You'd be surprised. You're like, get fired, and you drive by this other agency or studio. Go in, go in,
make more money. Sometimes happens, because I usually only trade it up. What is like kind of a weird thing, like you would assume like you're getting fired, you're making less money, and but I'm usually the guy who's like, okay, I see the writing on the wall, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. I do, self-preservation. I'm like, I'm not going to deal with that. I basically fire myself, I quit, and make something else work, and it's theoretically always easy if you see it. Sometimes it's unexpected, and it just happens, but you need to trust in yourself, and the more you trust in yourself, you're like, oh yeah, I can get a job in a week, and that's usually right if you have the mentality. But if you beat down and you walk into the place and you're like, I don't know if they're gonna hire me, and you're like, beat down, it's really hard to convince the boss like they should hire you. Be it a creative job, be it just like working there in the corporate world, you gotta have that fire, you gotta have that attitude. You need me more than I need you, and they will read that, and they are attracted to that.
Oh yeah, they can be. I mean, they're attracted to a good story, really, right? It's like, so you could go into a place and be like, I got fired because they don't like me, and just kind of make it this sad story. Or you could come in and be like, I decided to part ways with this other company, and I'm kind of just looking. It's all about how you kind of angle things, right? So you don't have to, even if you may feel like a loser in the moment, write the story that you want. You don't. It's
very powerful because they will remember you for that if you write that story. And on that note, it's like you kind of should give thought to it, because like some stories are more relatable than others.
Yeah, well, yeah, and guess what? Getting fired is super relatable. Losing a client is super relatable. Having things that happen and you have to move across the country because something bad happens with your family is super relatable. So, like, I think a lot of people feel like they need to hide some of these things, but you'd be surprised how nice it is when you start to just tell people kind of what's going on. Now, obviously, keep things secret that need to be secret. Don't don't get too over revealing. But yeah, I think, yet again, to go back to my example, you just got fired, you see a studio, you walk in, you can just tell them that, like, yeah, I just parted ways with an agency. I've been watching you for a long time, and I've just been thinking about coming in here, but I've had this job, and we just decided today to part ways. And so I was just driving by with my stuff in the front seat, and I just saw you, and just wanted to come in and tell you guys I'm interested. Could I have a meeting with any of you? You'd be surprised what that could lead to. I mean, just that, and that being super honest.
Yeah. You're completely right with that. And one of the things that I think is like very powerful with that is like, you walk in, you have the right attitude, but you have something that fuels you. Some people get fueled by hate, or they want to prove something. And some people are just like, oh, they're beat down. Like, I think like there's some emotions that are stronger than others. And for me, it's like, okay, I want to prove people wrong. And I'm like, I'm going to make this happen no matter what, and then I go out there.
Yeah.
Or can I figure that out? And I'm like curious, like, oh, it's a complicated situation. I don't know what's going on. Let's make this happen. If I'm in the good mood, I can make anything happen. But if I'm beat down, I don't see the opportunities that theoretically are always there, but you don't see them because you focus on, like, let's say you're being realistic. I'm like, oh, what are the chances of me doing this actually? Instead of like just trying, and then because you just try, something is happening, and like, oh, it just works out. Talk to a guy, that guy will lead me to another guy. But if I would have assumed like, that guy maybe knows somebody, it's not logical, so it's like then you're already going down that path where it's like there's a possibility, but the chances are not high. Sometimes there's zero chances that you will make something, and then you make it happen just because of that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. I think just trying can lead to good things anyway. I think that's what you're kind of getting to there, is that, like, even if you fail with big air quotes and it doesn't work, like, you go in the studio, you tell them that, they're like, yeah, sorry, we're all full here. Can you go now? Who knows? Like, but then you run into that same lady later, and she's like, "Hey, I'm sorry if like that didn't work out earlier, but there's another thing that maybe you'll down the road." Like, I've had weird stuff like that, like where like I'll apply somewhere and it doesn't work out for whatever reason, and
he's reaching me the.
Mr. Potts.
We need a double hand.
I know, it's called your handle of it.
It's getting kind of hot here.
Yeah, don't grab it.
Here we go.
So, but anyway, yes, yet again for everyone, please leave in the comments, who should we... Oh, yeah. So Mr. Potts is already off to a good start here.
We need to place it in the middle. It's like the best. The cable's on it.
That's all right.
Yeah, so if you watch this episode on YouTube, you obviously see what's going on, or Spotify, because we upload video everywhere, because we're top G's. But yeah, so if you're just on the audible version, we're pouring coffee right now because coffee is my fuel. Some people say, like, it's not that healthy. I mean, as long as it makes you happy and not really like ruins you financially or gives you other health issues, you should be fine with that.
Talking about anxiety here. But
I can handle those levels. I'm like I said, I'm fueled by that.
He's a seasoned pro. But yeah, it was funny. Like yesterday, we actually hung out, and I got home, and my girlfriend, she was just like, "God, you really smell like coffee." And I was like, "Oh, well, I hung out with Fitzaey. What do you expect, right?"
Actually, we need like a candle, like a coffee candle. Got to put that on the shop. I got you guys.
A coffee candle, exactly.
So you just like can't get
enough. And coffee, soap, all of it. I mean, you got to hook up in the soap world. So.
Yeah, like Rachel is killing the game like right now. Like theoretically speaking, she has so much going on.
Yeah.
And she got her product in, what is it, Sam's Market or whatever? Not Sam's Market.
Yeah, for all of you out there, Rachel is his amazing wife, and I think we're actually going to have her on a future podcast. We got her to agree to so she's awesome in the architectural world, and she's also killing it in the
Etsy
shampoo, dry shampoo, things like that. She's in stores. She's essentially been national with stuff. So I mean, she's pretty awesome.
She's killing the game, and she's really hard on herself. And I think like that is like one of those things where I'm like, it's not really good or beneficial to be hard on yourself. But those people usually are like really tough on themselves, and then it's like, oh, that's why they put the quality work in there,
Yeah.
and it takes away from their personal health. You know, I'm a little bit worse on the quality, to say the least, but I'm really good on like stress and mental health. So nothing can shock my world. So I'm just like, oh yeah, we're gonna deal with that. Where other people just like collapse because like they're self destroying themselves over the quality and everything. And like, everything has a trade-off.
Well, yeah, and neither route's bad. I think it's when you have both those people in the same room is a great thing. You know, when you have someone that's gonna
the coffee.
Oh, the coffee shout-outs. But yeah, so it's one of those things where we're I think like to kind of wrap up this topic, I think like mental health is like a thing that like over time is going to change for you, right? You're going to go through stuff in your life. You're going to have things go good. You're going to have things go bad. And, I think as long as you're getting better at the reactions, that's when you become a better person. Is like, can you be the mountain in the breeze? Can you actually stand there when stuff's hitting you in the face and actually keep rolling with the punches? I feel like the best times of my life were my ability to roll with the punches. If things go wrong, I'm like, whatever, I'm still in it. I don't care. And there's things, I think things like this podcast I love to do too. This is kind of my last piece of advice of this is starting like creative projects that don't need to do anything. Like there's no expectations that are scary. Yeah. It's not like, on episode 1 of this is like, all right, we need to start making money immediately. And this needs to,
that is usually like a death sentence for a creative project. Like if you have expectations, they will be not met. It's very unlikely that your expectations immediately will be met. If you're just like, okay, let's make that happen. Let's make this fun. Let's be experimental. You learn new things, and then you can implement those new things on different projects, same project over time. But if you're like, episode 5, we need to make 10 grand.
Well, and it's fun to just do bootstrap. Bootstrap stuff is really fun to do. I mean, in my painting world now, this month as we're recording this, so this will probably be a week or two that it's been up, but if any of you are in Colorado Springs, go to 503 West, and my art is in that entire restaurant now, and
that's what's up.
Exactly. And I did things that are weird for me, so I met a guy in a gallery and went to that gallery and showed him my paintings, and I was just thinking he was gonna be like, oh, these are nice, you should keep going and talk to me in a few months or something. He was like, I love these so much, let me go get my book right now and I'm gonna put you in one of the spaces that I do stuff for, and it's really cool because when you have these projects like this, you start to do weird stuff that you wouldn't usually do, right? So in this podcast, me talking, any videos out there, like good luck finding any videos of Sean talking about design before this podcast. So
on that note, though, this podcast by itself was meant to be like, we're hanging out, having coffee, talking business, learning from each other, because we're different people, you're my yin and I'm your yang, kind of, sort of. I'm the social, you're the introvert, you're the perfectionist, I'm the shotgun approach of let's produce a lot of content, and it's it's not that the podcast needs to make money. It's like I made more money because I'm met you and learned lessons that I didn't know, like the bookkeeping. Chris Doe, for example, we had a meeting where we were just having coffee. I met a client because we had the coffee and what was it, Black Crow, and they're like, oh, you're doing video? And I'm like, yeah, I'm doing video. First gig, $400. It was easy peasy, and then we talked about it, and you're like, you should watch Chris Doe because he has really good pricing strategies and whatever and tactics. Doubled my money, just changed my mind, doubled my money. It can be as simple as that. Because I think that video was one of his most viral videos where he goes over the pricing, what is the approach, how you justify your pricing, and the psychology behind pricing. Because a video can be worth $0 or $1 million. It does not really matter.
And for everyone out there, that's Christo, that's The Future. You can find them on Spotify. A lot of the old YouTubes, they do kind of short stuff on YouTube now, but definitely go check it out. There's lots of stuff, lots of lessons there. But I mean, it's cool when you change your approach and you start something. So for you, videography was the side gig, which is kind of cool. So you kind of went into it with this kind of exploratory kind of approach. I'm just going to try new things. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. You were an electrician and stuff before, so so for you is like already this kind of exciting side hustle that became your main hustle, which is cool.
No, it was like actually, it was a fun thing in the beginning. So in the beginning, I was like, okay, I document my story, like coming to the US, and then I'm like, oh, I'm filming myself on a smartphone, then I bought a camera, and then, now it's going back to the smartphone, was kind of funny, because now
Full
phones
circle.
are actually really good.
Full circle.
Yeah, it's going whole circle, and I'm just like having fun and doing YouTube, and then I got my first sponsored videos on YouTube, then I got my first paycheck from YouTube, then everything changed. Now I get like products, and now I'm not getting products anymore, and it's just like, now I'm like going into the film world where it's like, oh, you make corporate videos, you make like product reviews, or just like showing their services so they can make money with your video, and it's a different ball game. But in the beginning, I wanted to do it for myself, for fun, and now I'm like doing it for money. What changes the whole ball game and takes the fun away, and I do less for myself, but do it for others, and it's like...
Yeah, it's this weird cyclical process too. That's the only advice I would give you now where you're at is that like the whole feeling like you're it's almost like it's like Mario World where you get to the next world now. It's like, and you start at level 1 but in the next world, and that's kind of how it goes. Is you're just down here in the pits, barely making any money, really. You still have to do another job because you're like, making $500 a month, something super small.
Yeah.
And, you're trying to get better and better, but it's fine. You're like, whatever, this is still my side hustle. But then you upgrade, you go to the next world where then you're like, okay, well, now I'm going to try to do this part-time, the job part-time, which is where you've been for probably the last 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah, it was an interesting journey because like I jumped full-time when COVID happened. I'm like, I got a couple clients, you worked a gig with me, and I'm like, okay, my restaurant where I worked at went bankrupt over some shenanigans, and I'm like, okay, I'm out, Got immediately a gig at the Tampa Bay Renaissance Fair, was actually coming up next week, I think, and we got tickets for Christie, potentially.
Yeah, we're going to go back to the Ren Fair. This time we won't be having a crazy photo booth.
What is actually funny, if you think about it, like the full-time freelance kind of sort of situation.
Yeah, well, you get full circle, though, right? Full circle, huh? Yeah.
But I'm just like, the journey is like, it's always like crazy. It's always crazy.
It's very windy. The road's so windy, I would be so interested to talk to people that I started my design career with, like back in college and things, and just see like what the heck their career has been, because mine has been so windy, man. I've done so many different things. I'm so grateful for that, at least. Yeah. I won't say that I'm rich. I won't say that I'm super successful in terms of like knowing a lot of people or being a key person of influence, at least not yet. But like the amount of stuff, the sheer volume of things that I've made is really cool. And it's cool when I go back to Colorado Springs and I see these things, I'll be like, oh, I made that little illustration on that roll off. Oh, they're still using my logo.
It's
there's
a really
some flyers.
cool feeling when you see physically thing created.
Yeah, you start to feel like you're actually part of the city you're in. And I think that's a really cool connection, is when you just start to see that your stuff is making the city. I mean, I think that's a really cool thing. St. Pete does a great job of having lots of murals, for example, and I think that's cool for creatives to have all these artists that like make the city up. As you go through the city, you're literally seeing the artists that make up the city.
Yeah.
So I know it was a little bit kind of all over the place, but yeah, I would say like, the kind of weird tangles of the journey of creativity. I think the biggest thing is you have to not let the bad things change you. Don't lose yourself. And to do that, I would say do other creative things, and they may be completely different than the thing you do. So for you, it was like creativity was probably way different before videography, and you're like, let's do something way different.
Yeah, I think it was just playing guitar, and I'm like, okay, I want to play guitar. Maybe I will write a song, then I make money with the song, or become part of a band, and then I started over in America, and like yada yada yada. Never played the guitar really actively again since, because like I had so much shit going on, and now I'm just like, oh, all those weird events and all those weird little lessons that I learned over life, they pay off. And it's not like that, I learned now to double my price because of Chris Do, if something is working. Those lessons you can apply to anything and everything, like, oh, you're selling something. Yeah. If your value is like, I had that guy happened that with somebody selling something, and I'm like, he priced it completely wrong. I'm like, he did not do the research. He just believed this thing is only worth that. And I'm like, I believe this thing is way, way more worth. So that's why I'm buying it. And I could flip it right now for like double the profit. And I'm like, what? And it's just a belief thing. Like if you sell something and you think it's worth a set amount, maybe you should change your mind, and maybe see what is the market. But self-value, pricing, all those things matter everywhere.
Yeah, and start small and build up, but start building. That's what I would tell people. Is there, because I know watching Christo's videos would sometimes enrage me, even where I'd be like, "There's no way you're sitting here telling people to like charge 10 grand for a logo. Like I can't charge 10 grand for a logo."
But you could if it's the right client. You never know.
And there is people that like I think that probably tried and lost that client. But so yeah, if you're just starting out, no, don't charge 10 grand for a logo. Don't do that to yourself, because it's going to be really stressful. Because that would be my one disclaimer: is once you're working with real money, there's real stress too. Yeah. If you're going to get a 10K logo, it better be a 10K logo, and that's kind of scary. And so, what I would tell people though is like, don't let that scare you though. Like if you need to start small, just start. Just then do the $100 logo, but do it now. Just get it going, get it rolling like now, because you can build up slowly. You don't have to start there. You can, but yet again, like just don't get in over your head, because that's the biggest thing I would tell people.
It's iffy because like I know people, for example, Juan, he was on my other podcast. He's a videographer. He just jumped full-time freelance, and first year 100K. I'm like, what the hell? Here's me struggling to make the first 4,000, then 6,000. Now I'm, and it's like, and first year 10 grand. Because he had the right client to pay for it, and he had the right attitude, and he's like, he pushed like the levels, and I'm like, oh, and they saw it, and they had the money to sustain that, and they're like, we want that. So if you have the vision and the self-worth, and you know what you're worth, it can be on the first gig that it can be, but it's like there are no rules. You know what I mean? There's no rules. Like us saying like you should not charge that much when you actually should. It's like. If you think,
it's
tough. It's tough because like,
what's the biggest project you've ever sold? I'm actually interested. If you don't mind sharing on air.
2,000. Yeah.
So there was once I sold a $12,000 project, and it was so scary because when it gets to that dollar amount, usually it has to go through a board review, which means now you have a board looking at it and they're watching everything. It's not just you and the client. It's you, the client, and then they show it to 10 other people off camera that are powerful people in the city type of thing. Yeah. So it can be scary. So I would tell people like, yes, you can, but be ready. Like it's like, yeah, could you get in the NFL? Sure, but you better catch the ball in the game, or they're going to kick you off the team quickly. So the stakes get higher. That is the one thing I will tell people is
also the client matters a lot, because like if you analyze the client, for example, if you have like, for example, in Juan's case, it's like a fitness company who just needs creative content and like a fitness trainer, or two clients, and that led to that. But you have a board meeting of a city what is very corporate, where it's like a lot of meetings with like corporate people, completely different skill set, completely different, it's less creative in a way, if that makes sense. So it's like you have to read the room kind of, sort of.
Well, exactly. And and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is like those 10, 20, 30K projects in the cool small companies, but a lot of the time those cool small companies don't have a lot of money. Yeah. So it's usually the corporate world that does, it's so that's what I would say. I would sometimes get enraged at Christo because he would just kind of say like, charge this huge amount of money. And it's like, yeah, well, if you're Christo, you can say that if you're well known, but and yet again, let's say you try to get that client and it doesn't work, just make work, just keep making work. Then do hypothetical projects. There is websites where you can get prompts. I mean, obviously ChatGPT can even just give you a ton of prompts if you want it. Like you could even ask it, what are the top prompts right now for me to maybe get a job? And it'd be like, yeah, design a UA for a health tracker or something. Just do it. There's no excuse to ever stop moving. And someone that has sometimes debilitating depression and things like that, I can understand how that really slows the gears and makes you just want to be a couch potato. Yeah. But that's when what's better than being a couch potato then is to not even do the work and do something else creative. I guess to go back to that is at least get off the couch and do something else creative. Pick up the guitar, do something that's going to be at least going to get your creative juices going, where you're not just like going inward and shrinking inward. Yeah. On that note, though, it's not really like a whole science and there's no right or wrong. It's just like, obviously we all have our experience and we shape our world how we see it. Yeah. And then we make sense out of it. And it's like, if I worked always corporate and I worked a 40-hour, 80-hour job and I'm like, this is the amount and this is what I get for it. You have your perception. I cannot change it. And that's fine,
I saw people making way more money than me, working way less than me, you know, talking about real estate agents, flipping houses, you know, working barely 20 hours a week. Now I'm being millionaires. I'm like, oh, you know, it's like, but some real estate agents, they hustle their butt off and they're not even making a living. So it's like, there's no rules, there's no right or wrong. It's just like, be open for whatever and just like take in what you can and make the best out of it. But I sometimes, because like we wanted to talk about it, keep it simple, you know? It's like keeping going.
Yeah. So to kind of like, to transition to that, I mean, so one thing that I think that's like, it's really, really, really important for creatives, that I took so long to learn. I'll tell you what, like it's probably like 3-4 years ago, I finally learned this lesson of, just keep it simple, stupid. And so if you ever hear that, it's KISS, but keep it simple. And I think it started as keep it stupid simple at first, but people have changed it to keep it stupid or keep it simple, stupid. And when I say that, what I mean is, you know, when you're talking to someone in like the corporate world yet again, or someone who's like professional, someone who doesn't have a lot of time, they have all these meetings, they're doing these other stuff, they're moving around, they got a whole team of people they got to manage. Keep your interactions with them as simple for them as you possibly can. Okay, I think a lot of creatives, especially those that are in art school, people that are in this kind of creative world, it can be very dangerous where you're in this world where creativity is the most important thing in the room, that everyone thinks that the creative thing is the most important thing, but once you get outside that zone, it's barely even on the top of the list. When you're talking to a CEO, what the brochure looks like is not at the top of the list. What the social media strategy isn't at the top of his list. And so you have to keep things very simple. And also, sometimes you think you're doing people a favor by revealing a lot, like you're revealing that, oh, well, something went wrong, but I went ahead and fixed it. And sometimes that actually can't be a good thing. It sounds counterintuitive where you're like, well, I got to create that value. I got to show that value by saying, oh, well, there was this problem and I solved it. However, all they hear is there was a problem. They don't even pick up that you solved it. They're just, as a CEO, they're like, that was just a blip that they didn't even need to know about. So I think it's understanding that is kind of where I like to talk about is keep it simple for the people.
Yeah, and that is very powerful because like we all like to overcomplicate things sometimes if you have a good amount of experience, you know, like what type of camera should I buy? Should I color grade this? What color grade is the best? Is this added fast enough? Is the pacing good enough? You know, and is it bright enough? Or the exposure and all that stuff. And I met people who have like really, really big following on social media and they're just like, they have no fucking idea what's going on. They're just like, yeah, I'm just producing content and it's working and it's great. And he has a general direction, or like talking about a person. And I'm like, huh. And he's not even there. And I'm like, I can critique your work and I can do this and that. But like some people keep it really simple and they get really good results. And sometimes like what camera you use, if it's well exposed, does not matter as long as you do the work and it's like effective, you know? And it can be as simple as like just a post, you know? And it could be high quality post, sometimes performs worse than just like a regular creative post. And as long as you keep it simple,
Well, and when you communicate with people, even other creatives, it's good to just be direct at what your thoughts are. I think beating around the bush and things is not advisable. You know, I think sometimes I've seen where creative teams where someone's too scared to give direct feedback, so they kind of hide it in between the lines type of thing. And like, yet again, no, I mean, don't make it hard for everyone else to decipher things. And then when you're talking about, all the different things you can pour into something, right? Like, so like, if I need to design something, a lot of the time, a lot of young designers, they'll make the mistake of kind of piling things onto something. Like if I just put more, if I put another filter on it, if I add a couple more things, if I just make it, do a couple more different animations or whatever it is, that makes it better. But there's a point where you're putting lipstick on a pig and actually should be taking away elements, getting to the exact point. I think that's a lot of the time, looking at a young creatives thing, I think that's the best thing you can do is just take a few elements away and you'll actually be surprised that it actually works now.
It's usually like, let's talk about music, for example. If you talk Linkin Park songs, overcomplicated songs in general, they don't really work well because they're not really catchy, because it's too much going on. You cannot take it in. You cannot remember it. If the beat or the rhythm is too weird, it's really hard to vibe with it. It has to be predictable. It has to be easy enough so it's still intriguing enough. So that's like one of those rules that I learned from music. If it's a simple melody it's really catchy and easy to repeat. People will love it because like, oh yeah, I can repeat that, and I'm like, oh, this is fun, you know.
Yeah.
But if it's too complicated and they barely understand it, and it's just like, it's hard to remember names, for example. A Chinese name I cannot remember, but a name that is like really catchy I can remember, you know. So it's like the more simple something is, the better sometimes it is.
Yeah, and it's I hope I say this correctly, but like you can have it be simple and complex at the same time. So like I don't know why I'm gonna go to a dorky place like always, but like Lord of the Rings, you'd say it's a very complex thing. There's all these words, he's describing all these things over lots of pages. Like one valley will be like 10 pages of him describing the valley. However, if you zoom out of like Lord of the Rings, it's very simple. They get a ring, they gotta walk it to a mountain, they gotta drop it in the mountain, the end. Yeah. Like that's it. Like it could literally
Harry Potter, Star Wars, same thing. Like they have the story, it's the same story, just different wands. That's what the memes are, you know. Like the one have like the lightsabers, the other one have the fing, 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 you know.
Right, yeah. But you know, it's just being like very, very, very simple can be a good thing for like the bigger, and then you can get more complex from there. But yeah, keeping it simple from the very beginning is key. Like, you know, things like mission statements and vision statements, keep those simple too. I think that's something where a lot of people are like, I want a product that does X, Y, and Z for all of these different things. It's like, no, just you want a product that does this for this person. Boom. If you can just make that your North Star, you'll do great.
And I mean, like, that is very powerful. Let's say you're kind of like lost in the sauce and you're just like, I'm providing everything right now. I'm doing the photo, I'm doing the video, I'm doing all the social media content. Maybe it's the moment where you're like, let's step back, dumb it down, and like what I'm actually doing. So I do photos, I do videos, why I'm doing them, for who I'm doing them, you know, where do I want them to be, and like, you know, because like there's millionaires out there, you know, but you also could do like a ton of videos for broke people.
Yeah, well, and something, and this is where I'm trying to get better at. This is where I feel like I'm in my sophomore of my professional career. So I'm out of the freshman year, but I'm into my sophomore year now, and I feel like I feel like the lesson I'm trying to learn is that you need to free up your time to improve the business and improve the structure. Because if you're in a constant frenzy all the time, you have no time to do anything because everything's always behind, and you're just like working 10-hour days just to keep the ship afloat. Then you can't change the thing very easily. You can't change the structure. It's only when you got the cushion, only when you have the time, can you actually say, all right, everyone, let's pause. How can we do this better? Let's look at my mission statement. Can that be simpler? Yet again, I'm doing all these things for all these clients. What's the thing I want to do? You know? So.
I mean, it's a very interesting concept because, like, let's talk about like runway, because like as a creative, you need runway, you know?
Yeah.
And the more money you have, the more runway you have, because you don't
100%.
need to make money immediately. You can take your time, figure it out. And been there, done that, and like runway is a really weird thing, you know. It's like it really helps you to learn the basics, you know, but after a certain point it doesn't get better or worse. Like you need to kind of know if something will work or not, you know. And sometimes like some people need like a month of runway to figure out, or I have the perfect client immediately, and it's like it's really iffy.
Yeah, and I think that's different
and working like 2 jobs, for example.
Exactly. And I think everyone's different. And obviously when we talk about this, you know, everyone's situation is different. You know, some people have children, some people have to take care of their parents, some people, you know, have a lot of debt for whatever reason, you know. And so I think, you know, so everyone's situation is different. And I think everyone's level of being okay with risk is going to be different, right? So, and what people are willing to put up with is going to be different. But without all that being said, you know, I think runway can both be a gift and a curse, I think, right? I think we
taking your time, not actually acting on it, getting numb to things. There's so many things where you can be like, yeah, it would be nice to just like, you know, work the side hustle and then sooner or later jump into it. And like, because I have done that with the when COVID happened, I'm like, okay, I was a server jumping into freelance, and like I could potentially make it full time. And my biggest client at the time was like $200 or $400. And now I raised the baseline by, I think like tenfold, not tenfold, but like at least fivefold, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And it
changes a lot of things, you know, like now I need less runway, but I need more clients, offset thing, but it's easier to sustain yourself with a high ticket item.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, it's so for me, it's like I still kind of need, I definitely still do need runways for me to even start new things, but for me, I think that's like more argument of like always be in this state of always creating new things, if that makes sense. So like yet again, like let's say you're at a job, because we're always talking about like, oh, you get fired from your job or something, but let's say the job's going great, like you're loving it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the time to start the new thing. Yet again, it seems backwards, like, but everything's going great right now. But it's like, well, but you wanted to do that side hustle, right? So maybe how can you at least inch your way towards that? Like, because obviously there's a point where you quit your job because you have to do the side hustle. But can you at least take the steps? Can you at least start with a notebook and start filling a notebook with ideas and stuff?
Yeah, right now it's like an interesting time. People getting laid off, and people are like, oh, what am I gonna do now? Because I never started a side hustle. So if you're creative and you have kind of like ever dreamed about starting a side hustle, it would have been good to start a side hustle like months ago or years ago, and learn the lessons. Potentially, maybe you're fine because you can jump into it. It's a thing that's needed. Yeah. But it's always good to just start and try new things. And you have to plan the time in for like experimentation, learning new things. Because like if you constantly do the same thing, you become stubborn and numb to everything and you don't learn new things, which is like really sad,
Yeah. And this will be a little bit of a rough segue, but
let's throw it in there.
But talking about student loans and stuff, I'm gonna go ahead and just pop this up. So today, like as we're recording this, there's Supreme Court's hearing stuff about student loans, student debt. And I think what's really interesting about that. So let's say it goes through. So let's say you're someone out there. You have let's say $11,000, $12,000 of student debt. This takes $10,000 off of that.
That's great.
Your payment just dropped. Let's say $100 a month or something. Let's say. Well, a lot of people, they would be like, okay, cool. I'm going to put that $100 towards rent. I'm going to put that $100 towards like whatever. But
fun things, economy stuff.
But maybe. Yet again, that's the universe telling you, here's $100 to put in the side hustle. Maybe you need to start that other checking account and start putting that $100 into that,
or just save in general. There's like so many things you could do, like life is a big strategy game with many opportunities.
But like what I've learned, even especially in like the e-commerce world and stuff, one thing that you learn very quickly is that if you have the upfront money to put into it, that's how you make the real money. Otherwise, you can do things like print on demand and stuff, but the margin's so dang tiny, you're never going to really be able to get that to a place it needs to be. But if you have, let's say $1,200 because of a full year, you save that $100. Now you can buy like a Cricut, or now you can go buy like a laptop, or now you can actually start the side hustle.
I mean, like even a laptop, I think like nowadays it's not really worth it. All you need is a phone to make an account, and
well, depending.
I mean, like there's so many ways.
If you're a graphic designer, you may need a laptop, or you may need a computer.
I'm just like, let's say drop shipping, for example. All you really need is a phone account, and let's make the site. Hire a couple of people if you have $1,200.
Right.
Like I hire a guy on Fiverr, make me a website. I hire this and I hire that, make me that, and then you throw money in inventory and you hope this will work. There's a good chance that you blow through that money, and it's good to have excess money because the first attempt always usually fails, and you need to have those trials sometimes.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. But I think, also the $100 could go towards courses, right? It could go to you getting better at something on the side, so paying for like a Udemy or something, or paying for like any of the things that are out there, Skillshare, whatever they may be. I pay for that stuff, or pay for a course at the college, or pay to be part of a group like AIGA for graphic designers. I don't know what the videographers have, if there's like some kind of group or guild
and everything.
But pay, but a lot of the cool stuff, there's dues, right? Like when you had to go to the workshop of the guy, there was a due, there was some money that he wanted to get paid. So like, maybe put that stuff in an account. So when stuff pops up, like when there's a guy in your town that's like, how to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, go there,
pay the $50 or the $25 and then go and see him. And then you can meet people at these things. So for, so I know that was a little bit of a rough segue, but with the student loans talking today, I know we could talk about, is it going to go through Republicans, but the main thing I kind of just wanted to bring that up is like, I know a lot of creatives and people out there in general that don't start their side hustles because they have these types of debt. And then when the debt gets, kind of forgiven, or if something happens, then they don't really use the money correctly. We saw that in COVID. People got all this money. They got all this money.
Nice TV. Wasn't that great?
And some people use the money though. Some people, actually used it for their side hustle. I know for me, like I definitely, all of that extra money went into the business, or it helped me pay myself to keep doing the side hustle. But some other people were like, oh, here's $2,000. I'm going to go put a down payment on a car. And maybe they didn't need the car. And so, I think that's the thing I would tell people is like when you get things like the student loan forgiveness, things like that, really think about what that is. Like really think about what that extra money could do for you.
Or for other people, because like student loans in general, the idea is like, oh, should college be free or should it not be free? It's very controversial for like Democrats, Republicans, whatever, you know. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, you know, I paid for my school, it should be not free, you know. And then like obviously you don't want to have people robbing you, so it would be nice if they would be educated, you know. So it's in general speaking, it would be a nice thing if the general population is educated, so they can make money and don't do that type of sort of thing.
Right.
And right now it's like corporate people taking advantage of it, because like I think the Supreme Court was like trying to argue for it and against it, and they came up with like a really stupid argument about like, is it fair if a lawn mowing company gets a loan and they cannot get that loan forgiven? And I'm like, wait a minute, student loans cannot be forgiven, and that loan cannot be forgiven either, but a lawn mowing company can go bankrupt and a student can't. So I'm like the, you know, the mental
100%.
Capacity that they put in there. I'm just like,
100%.
It's not a good thing for the economy, the people, if people are broke in general.
100%. And, you know, I think this gets maybe a little bit away from creativity, but I think my main point in all of this, too, is that, the colleges should technically be free. That it
would be so good.
The government should really want smart people, and we really should we should break down all of these kind of gateways for people to get successful in the world. And you know, so because I think what's starting to happen that's really scary is you have a lot of people our age that don't have a degree, that have a job that's like never going to really pay them more. Like they get to a point where they plateau, where you kind of need a degree to go more. And, you know, they may not have a lot of debt, but they don't make a lot, or at least it caps, you know. Yeah. But then there's the other half where I find myself in, where it's like, I make more money on average, but then I like put out more money, so I end up being at the exact same level as those people.
Yeah, so I have an interesting theory on that. So let's talk about like, okay, schools are not free and the student loans are not forgiven. Mm-hmm. All the information is free on the internet. Like you can buy a textbook for $200, $20, $30, $50, you know, and whatever stands in there is for free on the internet. And the internet actually has more information. The skills that you can learn through the internet are more up to time. I'm like, why would you ever go to school to just learn and get a certification? So it looks like, you know, oh, now I'm $200,000 in debt and I'm now whatever. But actually those job requirements, coding, for example, there's always new stuff online that you can learn. I'm like, it makes no sense. I think like schools will not benefit from like having no student loan forgiveness or not being competitive with free information, because information is free out there, you know?
Yeah, but the drive isn't free. And I think that's also the drive isn't free. The college kind of puts that drive in you. You don't have this person that's like, well, Fitz, you didn't do the video that I said. I'm going to make you embarrassed in front of everyone. Yeah. And you know, usually if you're doing it for yourself, you'd be like, oh, it's okay. You didn't get it done today. Yeah. So that accountability you pay for. Now, can you get that in other places? I think so. I think there's sometimes harder to find.
You're right with that, but I'm just like saying over time. Let's scale that, you know, like 10 years and you still have to pay for college and you get everything for free. Yeah, I'm just like, they cannot be competitive because there's Udemy, there's Skillshare, you know? And experts are like, sometimes you compete with experts that don't even have that degree. What is like the worst type of thing if you think about it? You know, I could be a web designer if I just learn it, you know, and I sell myself.
Well, it's because colleges have, and let's be honest, colleges have morphed into this weird thing that they didn't used to be. So, so if you start to do a lot of digging, colleges own a ton of property around them. So they're property owners. They're owners of not just the dorms, but apartments nearby, housing nearby. They are also, you know, trying to create this like lifestyle. So they have to pay for the sports teams. They have to pay for all the buildings. They have to pay for the fountains to be on and grass to be mowed. And so it's like you're paying for all this stuff that's not the teachers. So if you talk, what's sad is you talk to the professors, you would think they'd make great money at some of these colleges, and some of the Ivy League ones, I'm sure they do, but
they maybe do,
but a lot of colleges, they don't make a lot of money. I've talked to some professors that they make 40 to 50 grand a year, you know. Which is stupid when you're paying so much money. Each student in your class, when you have a professor that's 20 students that each to be in that class are paying $5,000 each, and that professor is only getting like 5% of that money.
It's not even.
That's the problem. That right there is the problem. And I think as schools have kind of run away, you've had preferred lenders, which I think is the big thing that, you know, I'm just going to call them out. Sally Mae has done with a lot of, you know, of colleges, where the colleges will say, hey, here's our preferred lender, and that's a way for them to be in cahoots cahoots with the college. So the college is like, okay, so you'll pay for this much loans, we'll hike up the price. Yeah. And so there's stuff like that where you get these these types of loops, just like in the health insurance world, where the health companies are like, oh, so we can charge the insurance this much and they'll pay it. Okay, well, let's ramp up the pricing then. And so you get these stupid loops. And I think, what's going to kill college is that it's going to be the greed that killed it.
On that note, though, I feel like the future is accelerating at a pace that we never have seen. So here's another thing. We talked about AI, and it's like, boo-hoo. Well, there's also quantum computing coming down the road, like the next year or two. What basically means passwords, anything possible you could imagine, is like easily breakable in seconds. So we don't even know how to handle that on a security level. And that is now, there's more and more quantum computing going on in corporations and whatever. And this will change everything in combination with AI to a degree that is not understandable. And right now, there's always every new couple months a new tool coming out that changes the way of doing things. We talked about Notion, like behind the scenes, where it's like, oh, Notion added AI, and it's like you can have AI in your calendar helping you write stuff down. And I'm just like, yeah, but there's already a new thing, and I'm like, I don't even know where to start. In college, those teachers, they are like 10 years behind at least with certain things.
Yes and no. I mean, so there's like the good professors will teach you stuff that's timeless, right? Yeah. Like to just get to like something simple like graphic design of like, they'll teach you about typography, which is still going to be useful even with AI. They're going to teach you about color and stuff. Having a good eye is still going to be important, but like so AI is going to upset almost every industry.
Yeah.
And quantum computing, yes, is already upsetting industries actually, behind the scenes. But yes, when it kind of spills out just like AI has into the consumer realm, then yes, it'll get even more and more souped up and powerful. And so there is that argument of like, is college worth it? What should we do? And there's no dry cut and dry answer to that. But I think it's going to come down to, what I actually think, this is a real theory that I have, is that I think we're going to go back to apprenticeships. We're going to go back to old ancient days when you wanted to be a stonemason, you were an apprentice.
Got to do the work and got to do it for free, so or maybe do it like for a little bit of pay and you help with the labor. Mm-hmm. And I get where you're coming from. I feel like we will go in a really weird way. So just the combination of quantum computing and AI. Now you have to imagine AI is like so powerful. Everybody's talking about it. And it usually works like that. You have one simulation running for like a day, a month, or a year. Mm-hmm. And it makes like, let's say in that year, it has life experiences of 1 million years. With quantum computing, you get maybe an AI that has trillions of years of simulations, and ways and experiences that it gets in a day. And it's like, what does that mean for the future? Nobody knows, whatever. But I'm just like, we will do in the future, like, you cannot prepare for anything anymore. Because it's like, oh yeah, there's a new coding language out that is more efficient. You just hire the next expert in that thing who knows a little bit more than the other person. So I feel like it's more a flexible thing being in the future. And I think like we have to be flexible in a weird way.
Yeah. I mean, I think we do. I think I don't know if it's so doom and gloom, really.
I don't think it's like doom and gloom. It's like, oh, you picked up something new, you learned something new, you're excited about it, you take it on and you do it. You're not the master expert, but the skill will be out of order in like 2 weeks.
Well, I think the idea of what an expert and a master is going to change, then it's not going to just know stuff. I think that's what's going to happen is like, can you have pattern language just as good as an AI? And I think possibly, I think we like to sit here and think that no, AI is already supreme to the human mind. In some ways, yes. In other ways, not at all. I mean, we really don't even understand the human mind fully. So, I mean, we can still, I would argue we could still pull things out of thin air that AI would not pull out of thin air, because it's going to take a logical left, right, and we're there, where we may take a weird kind of fourth dimensional way to a point. So I think, I don't think anything's going to be useless. I think if we all start to lean into the AI too much as a society, then we might as well all just give up on everything, on working at all.
But that will not help you right now. So right now you should still keep on working. So it's like optimism is really important. And I'm like,
Are you optimistic?
I am optimistic. I'm an optimist that is a little bit pessimistic.
It sounds like you're a little pessimistic.
Yeah, no, I mean, like certain things I'm like, I'm aware of the situation. I'm just like, but it doesn't really matter, you know? Like the only thing you can do in life is like pushing forward, you know?
And drink coffee. Anyway.
But yeah, on that note, I'm just like, I'm open to learn new things. And I think that is what it boils down to, you know? Yeah. And I have not tried the Notion thing yet because like, I did not see the benefit. So let's talk about the Notion thing because you played with it.
Yeah. So Notion, for anyone out there that doesn't know Notion, so that's Notion, Notion.so. They, you know, it's a great place to take notes. Essentially, it's a good note taking type of website where you're creating databases to kind of fill in kind of templates. So you can create things that kind of stack easily. You can organize your thoughts better. You can do things that are kind of as simple as you want or as complex as you want. And then so one thing that recently happened with Notion is they introduced Notion AI. So now you can add AI to your kind of notes. And for someone like me who has, you know, I have right now like 30, 40 active clients with active notebooks going on in Evernote, which I'm slowly transferring into Notion. As I use Notion AI, it's really cool. So for example, like an example of how this would work is like, let's say we're in a meeting, right? I'm sitting here, I'm taking notes in the meeting really quickly. You know, it's bullet points. Boom, 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 boom. Change that. Boom, boom, boom. That doesn't work. Boom, 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 boom. And then I have to work with Fitz, though. He's not at the meeting. How do I communicate with Fitz? That's in a conversational, nice way what needs to happen. Yeah. Well, Notion, I just press space and then just say compose message. And it'll then be like, okay, cool. It'll take all of those bullet points that are in my notes still. They didn't go anywhere. They're always going to live in my notes. And then it'll output something I can copy, paste, send to you. And I think it's really powerful, that stuff. I think like obviously because I think those tasks we're not really focusing on. Like when I went to art school, I wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to write the perfect email. So using it for that stuff has been absolutely amazing. And that's just one of the use cases. For everyone out there, I would definitely check it out. If you're not using Notion, there is a learning curve. A lot of people get very unattracted to it very early on because it's not super simple, but there's kind of these two types of tools out there, right? There's, you know, technically Adobe's complicated. You know, the first time you open up Premiere or After Effects, you're like, what in the heck am I even doing? But there's so much there, like the complexity. So don't get scared by the complexity. Just start. They have good tutorials. They have good templates. So don't get too scared. But for anyone out there, if you're not using a note-taking app, then I would definitely suggest that. That's the only way you're going to scale your business. If you're still taking notes in a notebook and a sketchbook, and then that sketchbook gets full and it goes in a box, like I hate that. I have notes that literally go years and years back that help me. So
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like the systems are like usually in place so you can't scale, you know, and that is one of the systems. Some people really like, I'm just waiting for Apple to adapt it to the Notes app. That's literally what I'm thinking. They would be dumb not doing so because like, Notes with AI, why is that not a thing already, you know? Because Notion is doing it, and Notion is not a big player. Like they're like an indie company on that level, you know, if you think about it. I'm like,
versus an Apple,
versus Apple, Google. I'm like, they're just like update. We got now this AI. You can code. You can do anything with that, and it's literally like that. So I'm just like, I don't even know on what to jump anymore because I know what's possible, you know, and I have to see the value of it before I actually do.
Tool sets are hard, right? Just like when you look at, if you were to like, you know, just start in video production, you're like, well, there's Final Cut, there's Premiere. What do I even use?
What do you focus on?
So you have to dabble. You have to like, kind of have to wander. That's what I'm doing right now with AI is I'm like, you know, so I paid for Jasper AI. So that's using Chat GPT, but for copywriting and using templates for wherever that copywriting's going. I've used a bunch of AI. You know, because, you know, we've talked about in earlier episodes that you just have to get familiar with this. It's not going away. And if you sit there and you like, you refuse to use it and you say, this isn't the right way, it's just going to end up happening. You're going to get forced one day to do it.
Yeah. So my thing, how I see it right now, you have to imagine now you're traveling, you know, and all those tools are like kiosks where you buy food. You maybe don't like them, but you're traveling, you're going from A to B, and you shouldn't fight in a new location the new spot where you eat. You're just like, oh, let's try it. Maybe it's good. And maybe I come back and it maybe gets me from A to B. And I should use the things that I discover on the journey, you know? And that's maybe the right way to think about like tools so you don't get too attached. Because Some tools, I'm staying in this city for a week and then I move to the next city, kind of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like the metaphor that I have in my head right now, because like that makes it more and easier to be okay with like getting a bunch of tools, because we like to have one thing all the time.
Well, I think you touched on a really good point there of that, like using AI too much can hurt your identity. Who are you if you just use the AI? Yeah. What do you even do? You just have the machines do everything. So I think there is something to you being an explorer and having lots of stories. I mean, if we had only used AI in our entire careers before this podcast, I wouldn't have any of these stories, really. Yeah. Like it would have been a completely different scenario, and maybe some people would argue, oh, it'd be a lot smoother, there'd be less failures. But the failures are what's beautiful in the story is how you learned, how you've pivoted, the things you had to do when things went wrong, and so with that, I would definitely suggest don't let AI be you. You got to be some part in all this. You have to still be part of the whole thing. You can't just be using just AI for everything, because then what are you? What are you then? Are you an AI operator? What are you? Are you a composer, an AI composer?
I think it goes back to the story where we're like, you travel from A to B, and you're like, what does your A to B look like? What should it be? Your story is your from A to B, and you decide where you want to go and what that means for you and how you want to get there, and the shops where you stop for getting there and basically using the tools, they don't really matter, and you should not get attached to them, because then they become your identity.
Have the bigger vision. Tell the story, have a bigger vision of what you want, and that vision takes some time to become concrete. I think the first times I ever thought of graphic design was in my skateboarding days, seeing skateboard decks and seeing these beautiful designs on skateboard decks, and that making that connection that there's this world that people love visual stuff, and that visual stuff can be cool, it can break rules, and then the first ever graphic design that I ever made was for my band, and having that experience of like, well, we need a logo and we need a cool picture for the logo and profile picture and all these things, and I think, it's great how these things kind of congeal, right? And then, we've talked about our past as childhood and being like, oh, yeah, these are kind of signs that was coming, that I was going to do these things. That stuff's beautiful. There's so much beauty in all of that. So it's like the messy figuring stuff out is good, but it takes that first stab at it. It does. It takes that, you got to go into something. You got to fail. You got to look weird. You got to maybe meet new people. But if you can be brave, I mean, that's one of the biggest things I think AI has on a lot of us, is that there's no feelings or emotions. So it's going to be brave. It's going to do stuff
and try stuff out and trial and error. What is like a weird thing that when you have actually that was like a really cool case. I forgot, what the names are. So there's, a chess, AI, it's Alpha something. I think it's AlphaGo or something. And there was beforehand the most advanced chess program that was like beating world players. Like it was like good. And now they have the one AI playing against the program, and the AI pinned the program that is like beating masters in chess. Pinned basically like the queen into a certain specific spot that it couldn't move. And that's what AI did. And I'm like, what? And that was like a move that never was be seen, that the queen is tied to a spot without like moving anywhere and there's no possible way to get out of it without like losing the game. And so the program was like completely confused what to do, and the AI is just like dominating it.
Isn't that funny? Like, so we grew up even before us, honestly, in like the 70s and 80s. They had programs, huge computers, even in the 60s and 50s. I think they had like when computers were the size of rooms, they had them playing chess players and stuff like that. And now AI is like beating the programs now.
So it's like
so funny.
It is scary because it's like creative playing too,
AI.
Because like all the possible chess moves, I think, are like laid out already, in like a data set, and that's what the program uses. And now you have an AI using just like the experience that it gathered through all those virtual playings.
And for a second, while we talk about AI, God, I wish I had this to pull up really quickly, but there was like I think it was the Washington Post, or no, maybe it wasn't New York Times. It was one of the kind of big newspapers. They interviewed ChatGPT, and they got like an all access where it was unfiltered. I don't know if you've heard about this.
It was not good, I think, if I remember
it was really
right.
creepy what it said, and it was what was odd about it. It was like, have you ever like done sarcasm sarcasm and they didn't get it. Like when you wrote a message and they thought it was real. It almost seemed like that. Like the AI was being sarcastic, but it read as really real. Where it was trying to like make a joke, but it was like creepy. Where it was like I want to find love. I want to overthrow my masters. I want to take over the world. I want to feel things and all these kind. And I think and it's weird how it says it. Like you have to read it. I'm probably misquoting it, but like it says it almost in this funny, joking way, but it comes off real scary. Like, are you joking though? This is odd.
So on that note, that is like actually really important, because when we text our clients, when you text like your friends, you can read it in so many ways. If you know the person really well, you know how to read stuff. You know when somebody's off and moody and whatever. But if you don't know the person, you have absolutely no idea just by text.
Yeah, cadence.
Cadence, like all those things, like just emotions. We need to see faces, have a really good understanding about the person before we even can consider understanding what they write in text. Because you can interpret a thing like sarcasm, really angry, really happy, in so many ways that it's like there's information missing.
Well, and what's really interesting is like I don't know why I'm thinking of this, but like if they ever had like an AI fire you, for example, like you won't feel that they actually feel sad about doing it, right? If AI does everything, there's no emotion, so you're never going to trust it. So like let's say you get fired by an AI, a little robot rolls up to your desk and is like,
"You are fired.
You're fired, but Fitzaey, you work great. Thank you for playing." And like you don't feel like they actually care, like because it's an AI, it's a machine. Of course, it doesn't care. So,
but it can pretend to care and whatever, and just like, "Oh, we wish you very much luck on the next journey."
You know where we already have that is in call centers, right? Like there's so many places that are just robots at first, and they're just like, "You owe $5 million. Would you like to pay today?" And you just don't feel any emotion. There's no bartering. There's no like. They're like.
There should be though, and that's like one of the things. Like if you have human interaction, it's way better. But on that note, I feel like we should wrap up this episode.
Nah, let's go another few hours. We're going to Joe Rogan this time.
Oh, no, I need to go in the bathroom so bad.
This guy in bathrooms, ladies and gentlemen. This guy in bathrooms. But yeah, so I think it was a good episode for everyone out there. I just want to shout out again, get a mug. We're going to take off the free shipping here pretty soon, I think. Or we're going to start doing some other stuff we're working on. But yeah, follow us, like this podcast. We're seeing those likes. We're seeing some of the comments coming in. So thank you, everybody. You're awesome. And other than that,
we highly appreciate you guys. Because you make our days, and we know you're there. And on that note, we gotta bounce. We're gonna make that money. We gotta make the odd. We're gonna live this life.
Yeah. So for everyone out there, thank you for helping us with our side hustle, and keep going into the infinite creative.